Hello and welcome to my channel, Dabble Bag, the Art of Anna Barnhart. Someday I will tell you what that means. Today I'm going to share with you 5 productivity tips that I use as an ADHD artist, and I highly recommend these for people who aren't artists or aren't even ADHD. It helps get things done. Please like and subscribe my channel or comment below on how you get things done if there's something else that really helps you. And we're going to dive right into it. So my first one is a timer, and I tend to use the one on my phone. I send it for smaller increments of 20 minutes. I find that if I can get myself to sit down for 15 minutes, my brain will usually get into what I'm doing and work a little longer. If that doesn't happen, then that's only been 15 minutes, only 20 minutes or so, and I can move on to something else. I know in the past, and many other people with ADHD, or you get sucked into these projects. If something's fascinating, you could be there for hours, and then suddenly you don't have lunch for work, you haven't done laundry, you've only worked on this one project, and maybe you didn't even get that much done on it, but you've been doing it for hours. A timer helps with that. 20 minutes. You can do that a couple times. 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. Helps you remember to use the bathroom once in a while, go get a drink, take a break for 20 minutes again. And I find that that little section works so very much. Time, you can't save time. You can only spend it and direct where it flows. So having 20 minutes at a time, it helps fill up those little spots that, like, oh, I have 20 minutes before work. What can you do with that? I also find that having a timer helps me not think about, oh crap, I have to get this done. Like there's this alarm that goes off in your head. You ever have that clock in your head that ticks while you're waiting for something? Or it's like waking up in the morning. You know you have to wake up at a certain time, so your body wakes up 2 hours before then? It's kind of a weird anxiety thing in an ADHD brain, or at least mine, where I have this clock of, well, I know I have to get this thing done in an hour, and that takes up so much brain space of the future that I can't get anything done now. So having that timer reminds me of, it's okay, your phone's going to remind you when you have to do the next thing. Setting alarms for even silly things like that, of, this is the time I'm going to get ready for work, and then I can ignore what time it actually is, or ignore that clock in my head of time passing, because I trust my alarm to go off and I do what I need to do. So I highly recommend timers for those little tiny increments, for spending your time the way you want to and not getting sucked into one project, or not wasting an entire morning not getting that much done because it's like pulling teeth at that moment to get whatever you're doing. You can try 20 minutes and then keep on going with something else. And I also find this good for working on multiple projects in the morning. So I might do a couple 20-minute increments, like 40 minutes, 60 minutes here and there. But I can do that on multiple projects, especially the way I work, where I want the layers to dry in between. That also helps a lot. You can see in my recordings, I'll try to go for long stretches, and that helps me stay in one spot instead of moving around and wiggling and walking. I'm kind of tethered to one spot, and I have to keep painting as long as I can record. That helps a lot. Physically taping down my watercolor pages or drawing pages helps me not fidget so much that I'm actually kind of procrastinating. So taping something physically down so I have to stick to it, it's exactly what it is, literally sticking to it. So number 2 is music and podcasts. This whole section and tip is kind of a sensory thing, but for sound especially. As an ADHD or anything else, your brain wants something to think about. You've got this hands-on project, and I find that there's 2 different kinds of musics, 2 different kinds of thinking levels that I can listen to when I work. When I'm developing an idea or a composition, I need something really brainless, almost without words, something I can ignore. I tend to use this language portion of my brain when I'm developing ideas. I can't have a conversation and come up with compositions, or troubleshoot compositions, or come up with ideas for things to do. But when I'm executing those, doing like a large field of this one texture or something that you don't actually want to think too hard or you get bogged down in the details, that's when I recommend singing along with songs, getting podcasts that get you out of your own little world and learning other things. I love the Savvy Painter podcast. I learn about other artists. There's lots of them out there. That's just the one I've been listening to recently, so that was a good one. Please do that one. I might add a link for other artists, but podcasts, learn stuff. Maybe talk to someone while you paint. But when you're not thinking about too hard, you can actually paint better. It's more loose if you're trying not to think too hard. But there are those two levels of trying to think. Classical is also good. I love metal, a little bit of metal. But I find I have to be very careful about switching the genres of music in paintings. I was listening to like this classical playlist that my brother gave me, and suddenly some German opera came on, and my brushstrokes started becoming huge and started slashing at the canvas, and it was not the same as the rest of the canvas. So that can be a really fun exercise of changing up the music. Try rap. Clean rap. If you can find some good stuff that you like, try making the same painting with different kinds of music and see how your flow is influenced by that. Maybe you want to try that. It'd be a fun exercise. So that is number 2. Number 3, turn off the computer. Turn off your technology. Besides the music thing, if you need that. I get so sucked into checking my social media and my email and my YouTube. I could be checking it every 10 minutes without even realizing that I've walked away from my painting and I'm on the computer again. It's really sad. And I've learned I just need to turn the darn thing off. It's easy enough to boot it back up if I have to do something for work. But usually, it's YouTube. Sucking my time. Oh, I'm learning things. Bullcrap. You're procrastinating from doing stuff in your actual life. Just face it. Or checking Facebook, and Facebook, and Facebook, and Facebook. Stop living vicariously through everyone else's life. Why even do that? What do we get out of that? I have to turn it off. I do have my notifications on my phone for emails. I probably should be a lot better about only checking it a couple times a day. I want this to be a full-time job, so I need to spend more time actually painting, and it will take less and less small amounts of my day to do emails at a certain time. But I'm looking forward to hearing back from my art, so yeah, I check my email a lot. Turn off the computer, it's easy to boot up. Timer, again, if you're actually on the computer, that can help. So that's number 3. Number 4, lists and breaking down the projects. My brain is so full of ideas and things I feel like I'm afraid I'm going to forget, that if I don't write them down or if I don't do them right there, I often do forget them. I'm so afraid I'm going to forget them that it kind of creates its own little problem. So when I'm at work, I am so grateful. I have the luxury of being able to have paper next to me where if I remember something that I want to do, I can just write it down. Not all jobs, you can just stop in the middle of something and write down on your little brainstorming list something you don't want to forget. Now, remembering to bring that home and remembering to look at it again is a whole different issue. Maybe, again, that's good for my phone. Or a timer, or an alarm even, of setting an alarm to go back and look at that. I just thought of that. Lists. Lots of lists of things you want to get done. I've read somewhere that it's reasonable to get about 7 large items on your to-do list done. I don't know about that. It depends on my day, depends on how awake I am, and that's all part of my discipline as well, I guess. But having that list really helps me juggle all of those things. If you can't remember all the projects you're working on, and then you get so fascinated and involved in this one project, you don't have a timer, or you do, and you spend hours and hours on this one project, and then suddenly you remember everything else you were supposed to have done. That's why these lists help. These lists and breaking down your project into steps. Remembering all the projects I have to do helps me, like, oh, I can only do this many timer this many timer increments today. I can only do this many times 20. I think there's actually a whole different organization around those time increments. I can't remember what it's called right now. But lists help me see everything I need to do, and then I can portion out my little timer bits to do all of that. But breaking down the project goes into my number 5 as well. ADHD people get overwhelmed, or I do. I will take this on a case-by-case basis. Very overwhelmed by large projects. You see all the work that has to be done all at once, and it's scary. Because, well, you've got 100 hours worth of work, and you can only think 1 week ahead. That takes your entire week. But if I work 1 hour a day for a month, that's 30 hours. Breaking it down into these little bits is hard for my ADHD brain to think about. I want to get a whole bunch of stuff done all at once in these chunks. And ironically, when I do have an entire day to work on something, I can't focus 8 hours. I can barely paint for 2 hours at a time. Again, with the timer and the music and all of that, I need breaks and I need to move. Taking walks also helps a lot. So I can't work 8 hours at a time on these things. Breaking things down into steps and projects and lists, I can switch around. I know what needs to get done for a project or a painting, and so I know what step I'm on and approximately how much work I've done on something. It can also help you estimate time for commissions. And it goes into my next point about deadlines. A very, very scary word, I am sorry. So, deadlines. Terrifying word. The only thing scarier working with a deadline is working without one. Because I know when I don't have a deadline for a commission, I could take literally months to get back to someone. I'm sorry, people, if you are watching and listening to this, you know it's true. And I am confessing right now, this is a problem, and I'm working on it. I need deadlines. I like soft deadlines with consequences. And this is why. When you have a hard deadline of do or die and the rest of your life depends on this one project, it's scary. We tend to procrastinate out of fear. We cram it all in at the last minute. And once we turn it in, we see all these things we know we could have done better. You know you can do a lot better than that. But somehow your brain refuses to stick to that thing unless there's some anxiety about it or some kind of consequences. Now, a soft deadline with consequences, it's a deadline you set for yourself. You are the only one responsible for that. Stop whining about everybody else pushing these deadlines upon you because this is your own. Get accountability for what happens if you don't get it done. Oddly enough, I find rewards not that motivating to me. It's like, I'll get my ice cream if I want to anyway. I don't know how to work with that yet, but having accountability to someone for a soft deadline, cramming it in to get it done then, and then if it's still not to your best ability, you know you have a little bit more time. You're building in a cushion for yourself to polish it up just a little bit more. Use a timer. If you think you're done, I dare you to spend 20 more minutes on pushing through when you're bored or you're just through something. Just push a teensy bit more. Give yourself that soft deadline. And be honest with yourself. If you don't have a deadline, how much stuff have you gotten done? That's why you're watching this, right? Productivity tips. Well, be honest with yourself and see if something's actually working. Thank you, everyone. If you have comments about your productivity, please leave them below and like and subscribe.